r/NoSleep. My family played the house's games for years. But when it died, we found the true cost of winning. Growing up in our family home, I always knew it was different. From the moment we moved in, there was something about the place that felt alive. We weren't allowed to talk about it, but everyone felt it. The walls whispered, the doors creaked at odd hours, and sometimes, in the dead of night, we'd hear footsteps when no one was around. There were 4 of us kids, but I always felt like I didn't belong. It's not that my siblings were closer to the house, they were its chosen ones. It favored them, played games with them. I watched from the sidelines as the house issued its challenges. The rules were simple: solve the riddle, complete the task, and you'd be rewarded. The rewards? Unbelievable. A perfect report card earned a room full of toys. Win a game of hide and seek, and you'd find a secret stash of candy you didn't even know existed. The games were fun at first, but as I grew older, I began to notice the change in my siblings. They would disappear for hours into the house, and the house would keep them there, no questions asked. I tried to join in, to participate, but the house never let me. It always found a reason to keep me away. "You're too young," it would say. "It's too dangerous," it would warn. But I knew it was a lie. It simply didn't want me to know what was going on behind closed doors. At first, I thought I was just paranoid. But when I turned 14, I began sneaking around, trying to find out what was going on in the basement. I'd find my brothers and sisters in trance-like states, eyes glazed over, as if the house had taken complete control over them. I didn't understand it. I wasn't allowed in, but they always came back. Different. The games grew darker as the years went on. At 17, I overheard my siblings whispering about the house's ultimate prize, the inheritance. They didn't seem excited about it anymore. They seemed terrified. The house had promised them that if they won enough games, they would inherit its power, its wealth. But at what cost? One evening, everything changed. The house called for us all. The game was simple, but the stakes were higher than ever. One sibling would walk away with the entire inheritance, but the others would be left with nothing. It was a game of survival. They told me it would be my turn this time, but when I stepped into the living room, everything felt off. The lights flickered, and the air grew thick. The house wasn't just alive, it was hungry. I tried to run, but the doors were locked. The house had a grip on us now, and there was no escaping it. The first round of the game was brutal. My older brother, Jake, always the boldest of us, was the first to snap. He came at me, but I dodged him, my heart pounding in my chest. I couldn't understand why he was attacking me. We were family. But he was different now. The house had broken him. The second round came quickly, with Sarah, my younger sister, sneaking up behind me. She had been the sweetest, the one who had always tried to protect us from the house's games, but now, she was a stranger. She looked at me with dead eyes, a knife in her hand. "It's too late," she whispered. "You're either with it or against it." I ran, desperate, looking for a way out. The house was alive and breathing, its walls shifting and tightening around me. I couldn't breathe. I could hear my siblings behind me, getting closer, whispering their broken words, their promises to the house. They weren't my family anymore. They were puppets, strings pulled by a twisted force. I found the basement door open, and for the first time in years, I was allowed inside. The air was thick with something foul, and the basement was cold, colder than it had ever been before. And then I saw it, my parents. They were kneeling, staring blankly ahead, just like my siblings. They were part of the house now, too. They had been playing the game all along. It was too late to turn back. I didn't have the strength to fight anymore. As I stood there, helpless, the house whispered in my ear, "You've earned it, child. You will take your place now." But I couldn't move. The house's games had taken everything from me. My family, my home, my future, everything was a lie. The house had fed on us, grown stronger with each passing year, and in the end, it was me who was left standing, broken and alone. The door creaked open. I had won. But at what cost? The inheritance was mine, but the house had consumed everything I had left. There was no escape. The house's game was endless, and now, it was my turn to play. Forever. As I left that night, the house closed its doors behind me, locking me in its eternal game. The last thing I heard was its voice, whispering in my ear, "Welcome home, Isabella." The voice resonated in my head, as if the house had spoken directly into my soul. I stood frozen at the threshold of the basement, the cold air wrapping around me like a vice. My chest tightened, and every instinct screamed for me to run, but I couldn't. My legs refused to obey. The house had claimed me, just as it had claimed my siblings, my parents, and everything else it touched. I staggered forward, my breath coming in short gasps. The house felt alive under my feet, its vibrations pulsing in a steady rhythm, like the beating of a heart. I tried to block out the whispers echoing in my mind, but they only grew louder, overlapping and twisting into a symphony of madness. "This is your purpose, Isabella. You've always been meant for this. You've always belonged to me." I screamed, clutching my head. "No. I won't play your games. I won't be part of this." The house laughed, a low, guttural sound that vibrated through the walls. "You've already played, my child. Every choice, every moment, every breath has led you here. You cannot deny me now." I turned and ran, my bare feet slapping against the cold, wooden floors. The house seemed to shift around me, its walls stretching and bending, doors appearing and vanishing in an endless maze. I sprinted through the corridors, the air thick with the stench of decay. My siblings' laughter echoed all around, distant at first but growing closer with every step. "You can't escape us, Bella," Jake's voice taunted, laced with a sinister edge. "We're a family. We're meant to be together." I rounded a corner and came face to face with Sarah. Her red hair was matted with blood, her eyes hollow and lifeless. In her hand was the same knife she had used to attack me earlier. She grinned, tilting her head like a predator sizing up its prey. "Don't run, Bella," she whispered, her voice dripping with malice. "It's your turn to join us." I stumbled backward, tripping over a loose floorboard. Before I could get up, Sarah lunged at me, the blade gleaming in the dim light. I rolled to the side just in time, the knife embedding itself into the floor where my chest had been moments before. Scrambling to my feet, I ran again, tears streaming down my face. I didn't know where I was going. The house was alive, its corners twisting and shifting to trap me. Every time I thought I found a way out, the door would slam shut, the locks clicking into place. My breaths came in ragged gasps, my heart pounding against my ribs. "Why are you running, Bella?" Roman's voice called out, cold and detached. "We're your family. Don't you want to be with us?" Their voices were everywhere now, overlapping and filling the air with a cacophony of despair. I darted into a room and slammed the door shut behind me, my hands trembling as I locked it. The room was eerily familiar, my childhood bedroom. The walls were painted the same soft lavender, my old stuffed animals neatly arranged on the bed. For a moment, I allowed myself to hope. Maybe this room was safe. Maybe the house would leave me alone here. But then the whispers began again. "They'll find you, Isabella. They always do." I sank to the floor, hugging my knees to my chest. My mind raced, trying to make sense of everything. The house had always favored my siblings, always excluded me from its games. But now it wanted me. Why? What had changed? And then it hit me. The inheritance. The house didn't want me to claim it, it wanted me to earn it. This was the final game, and the stakes were higher than ever. If I survived, I would inherit everything, the wealth, the power, the house itself. But surviving meant defeating my siblings, who were no longer human. They were extensions of the house now, its puppets. A loud crash shattered my thoughts. The door to my room splintered as Jake burst through, his face twisted into a grotesque smile. His hands were clawed, his skin pale and stretched tight over his bones. He moved with inhuman speed, lunging at me before I could react. I grabbed the nearest thing I could find, a lamp, and swung it at him with all my strength. The ceramic base shattered against his head, and he staggered back, growling like an animal. I didn't wait to see if he recovered. I bolted past him and back into the hallway. The house was darker now, the air colder. My siblings were close, their footsteps echoing behind me. I knew I couldn't keep running forever. I needed to fight back, to end this once and for all. I stumbled into the kitchen and spotted a butcher knife on the counter. My hands shook as I picked it up, the cold metal heavy in my grip. My reflection in the blade startled me, I barely recognized the terrified girl staring back. But there was no time for fear. The whispers grew louder, the house urging me to give in. "Kill them, Isabella. Prove yourself worthy." I clenched the knife tighter, my jaw set. "I'm not playing your games anymore." Jake appeared first, his movements jerky and unnatural. I waited until he was close, then struck, the blade sinking into his chest. He let out a guttural scream, black ichor oozing from the wound. His body convulsed before collapsing to the floor, lifeless. Next came Sarah, her knife flashing as she lunged at me. We grappled, the blades clashing in a deadly dance. She was faster, but I was desperate. With a surge of strength, I overpowered her, driving my knife into her throat. She gurgled, her eyes wide with shock, before falling limp. Roman was the last. He didn't attack immediately, instead circling me like a predator. His dark eyes bore into mine, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of the brother I used to know. But it was gone as quickly as it appeared. "You don't have to do this," I pleaded, my voice breaking. "We can fight the house together." He laughed, a hollow, chilling sound. "The house is me now, Bella. And you're just another piece of its game." He lunged, but I was ready. We fought viciously, the house seeming to tremble with every blow. Finally, I managed to stab him in the heart, his body collapsing into a heap on the floor. The house went silent. I stood there, bloodied and shaking, surrounded by the bodies of my siblings. The whispers were gone, replaced by an eerie stillness. The air felt lighter, as if the house had exhaled its final breath. The main door creaked open. I stepped outside, the sunlight blinding after so many hours in darkness. The house loomed behind me, its windows like empty eyes. I turned back one last time, half expecting it to call me again. But it remained silent. The inheritance was mine, but it came at a price. I had won the game, but I had lost everything: my siblings, my childhood, my innocence. The house was dead, and so was the family it had claimed. I walked away, leaving the house and its cursed legacy behind. For now.